Awesome. Hey, everybody. This is Eric with the Drum Addict. Thanks for stopping by for another episode of the Backbeat. Today, I have my friend Myke Lewis with me. Myke, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, my pleasure. I'm glad we were able to connect. This is our first in-person connection outside of
Yep.
YouTube.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Well, I mean, there's that and the spiritual connection that we had over Spaceballs a few moments ago.
Yes. Before we started recording, we were having a Spaceballs back and forth film quotes. Now I'm gonna have to make Loretta very upset and watch that movie tonight because then she'll be like, "I don't want to watch Spaceballs." I'm like,
I am not responsible. I am not responsible for what happens in your marriage.
Yeah, no, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. But I was glad that I was right. I would have felt pretty dumb if you'd been like, "What's Spaceballs?" I'd been like, "Oh, never mind. Let's just start talking."
Now that I have my coffee, I'm ready to watch Radar.
That's right. Well, let's jump right into ludicrous speed and tell me what first of all, let me say this. You're a beast of a player. Like anytime I watch your covers, I'm just amazed at the proficiency that you move around the kit with. It's intense. What got you into playing drums to begin with?
Poor choices, and that's pretty much it. No, I saw the music video for Money for Nothing when I was when did that come out? 85. So I was 6 years old, and I was playing at a friend's place, and his mom was watching the show called Video Hits. That was like we didn't have MTV in Canada.
Okay.
We had much music, but you had to special order much music until like the 90s, and then it became part of your standard cable package. But anyways, cable, for those of you wondering, is how we used to watch streaming. Anyways,
lots have changed since the early 80s.
Anyway, I grew up with people who used reel-to-reel audio machines. Like I've seen the spectrum, and now I'm just like, I'm not learning this anymore. I'm done. But basically, I saw the video for Money for Nothing and that intro drum solo by Terry Williams. Omar Hakim plays all the rest of the song, but Terry Williams did that drum solo at the beginning, and I just, something in my brain was like, I'm going to do that instead of, getting a real job. And it just became a single-minded sort of drive. My parents shuffled me off to go play organ instead because they didn't want to listen to the noise. And I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then I managed to trick them into getting a drum kit for me when I was in grade 7, and that's been it ever since.
That was the thing. The organ didn't stick.
Well, it came down to emotional intensity. Like I really like what draws me to music is usually guitar solos. Like okay. I got really into Pink Floyd as a kid because of David Gilmour, and I like keyboards. I love keyboards. Like I love synthesizers. I love piano playing, the whole spectrum. But playing the keyboards doesn't do it for me. Same thing with guitar. I love guitar, but playing it, and I know how to play it, and I'm working at getting better at it, but it doesn't have the physicality to it that I need for a person on my particular level of goofiness. So bass guitar almost does it. I've actually toured as a professional bassist before. Okay, I'm reasonably cool. I'm not Victor Wooten by any stretch, but I can work my way through walking bass line if I have to. But drumming is just, it's my energy level. It matches my energy level, and that's why. If I was smart, nice. I had to play guitar. You can carry it everywhere. The entire world's pretty much geared for guitarists. But I decided to pick the most expensive, most inconvenient instrument possible, besides maybe like, I don't know, a harp covered in spikes. But maybe a cello that punches you in the face. That would be a bit tough to take on the bus. But yeah, so poor choices drumming.
Yeah, it is. I think like and I think people still do this. You see a drummer and it's like, playing on stage or whatever. You're like, oh yeah, that is it. That's what I want to do. That is the coolest guy there. And then you start doing it, and the first time you play out, you're like, holy crap. This is a lot of work. Like I have more gear than anybody else. And sometimes they don't help you. Other times they do. But
I've been very fortunate in my life. I've worked with more musicians who help carry stuff than not.
Good.
Most of the time it's lead singers who don't, but I will say I'm gonna name drop somebody here, this guy named Jordan George, who is the vocalist in a band called Wilt, who just put out a new record this month. I used to play bass for them and then drums for them. And Jordan always carried gear. Always. That guy carried more of my drum gear than I did. And so he was cool. But most singers are useless.
So you've definitely done some extensive touring and playing with other bands. Tell me a little bit about that. Was it Canada?
Well,
was it outside of Canada or
mostly Canada? I've played one gig in the United States and one in Wales.
Oh, okay.
And the one in Wales was completely by accident, actually. I got picked out of the audience at the Brecon Jazz Festival, and I just knew barely enough sight reading to be able to basically BS my way through it. And then they had a guest bass player, upright bass player, and I was playing with this big band called the Pendulum Big Band Orchestra.
Okay.
And they were from London. And the guy just started calling up drummers, and I was on vacation with my dad because my family's from Wales, so we were visiting the homeland. And well, one of them, my other homeland is France. It's a really weird mix.
There you go.
But yeah, that's why I hate myself. No, but basically, yeah, I got on stage and I knew enough to sight read and I could kind of like BS my way through. And then the bass player was like just sort of leaning over, going, "Do more backbeat," or do less backbeat here, whatever. He was great. And then I just sort of faked my way through it. But most of it's just been in Canada. Like I've recorded for people in other countries, like they've sent me their files, I'll record something and send it back. But I would say 99% of my gigs have been in Canada.
Nice, okay.
Which doesn't sound cool until you realize I've covered as much territory as you would if you drove from London to Moscow. But it's all in one country, so everyone's like, "You've only been in one country." It's a huge country.
I was gonna say it's a very big country. Yeah, right.
It's massive. It's unbelievable. There are people in the UK who think driving 2 hours is a full day. I'm like, that's going for groceries here. What are you talking about? If I want to go say hi to somebody, I got to drive for 8 days in any direction.
Anyway. If I want to go say hi to somebody. Yeah, I drove from Kentucky to Los Angeles and in California there. And obviously it's in California, but I realized I did state and city instead of state and state. Anyway, it's like a 45-hour drive.
That's nuts.
It's like
you're from Kentucky?
I lived there for like 22 years. Yeah, I grew up in southern New Hampshire and then ended up in Kentucky in 97. And then Loretta and I moved to North Carolina in 2020.
Oh, right. I thought you were from Carolina. That's where the Kentucky thing threw me. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been in the South more than anywhere else now that I'm at my age. And so now you're doing you've got your YouTube channel, and tell me a little bit about what got you into doing that. Like what made you go, let's start a YouTube channel and see what happens?
Lindsey Buffington was the main inspiration. She's a drummer on YouTube. Came across her channel kind of by accident. I was going through a few years ago, we were in the middle of the pandemic. This isn't a fun story. So we're in the middle of the pandemic. I was in the middle of a divorce. Life was a living hell, basically. And as a way to stave off suicide, I tend to throw myself into projects. And one day I just decided, I wonder how Rick Allen put his kit together in 1986 to go on the Hysteria tour, because that's the kind of thing I'll just latch onto and rabbit hole. And then I stopped thinking about how much life is just freaking me out. And so I was looking, I found some guy who was in a tribute band, and I can't remember his name, and I feel like a jerk for that, but it was on his page. The first comment was this girl, Lindsey Buffington, and she said, "I have cerebral palsy, and Rick Allen's a big fan of or a big inspiration to me." And, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, I got to see how a person with cerebral palsy plays the drums. There was a gross curiosity to it. I'll admit to that. But when I watched her play, she only had one video up, and it was this 1 year of drumming video. And man, it freaked me out. Like I've been drumming off and on for 33 years, 34 in September. And you can get really burned out in that amount of time on anything. And you can get really, really jaded and stop appreciating things. And I didn't realize that I had stopped appreciating drumming a long time ago. I got bored with myself. I got bored with the instrument. I just, in conjunction with all the other things going on in my life, I pretty much just bottomed out. And I saw this kid. I don't know how old she is. I think she's in high school now. So anyway, she just had this like joy coming out of her, you know. And I remember being like 12 and just like playing one beat, but you felt like God for a minute, you know what I mean? Because you were pulling this off, and then, and as it is when you're young, you know, and you start something, you improve really quickly, and you're constantly leveling up, and then then you start to plateau between improvements, and then it's like at 30 years in, if I improve, it's like, whoa, when did that happen? Because it's been 8 years since I've noticed it.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And that's where the burnout can come in, and just this kid's enthusiasm for what she was doing just knocked away all the rust that had accumulated, if you will. And I realized what a cynical, jaded douchebag I was being. And I had been scared to try recording myself playing the drums, not because I can't play, but like my hearing's not very good. I thought I wouldn't be able to mix very well. I thought I'd sound like crap. And I was scared. I owned a set of mics for a year before I took them out of the box.
Okay.
And I just sat in the basement of my house, just like through the first year of the pandemic, and just stared at my drums. And I was terrified to pick up the instrument again, because I've had to give it up a few times. And then you got to climb that mountain to get back to where you were.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. I mean, once you get up there, then yeah, it's a breeze. It's great. But, and knowing that climb is coming is all the more discouraging. And then again, with all the other things in my life, I wasn't really the most motivated guy. And Lindsay just lit a fire in me again. And I remembered how much I love drumming. And I remembered how fun it was to just be excited about it. You know, to just put on a Rush record and be like, you know what, this is just super fun. I don't have to care about how good it is or how complicated it is or whether I can play it. This is just awesome that this exists. You know what I mean? And that I'm good enough at an instrument that I can sit down and express whatever's going on in here or both, if you're doing it right. And, you know, like, why I should just be celebrating that every friggin' day. I mean, people go their whole lives wishing that they could do something like what I can do with the drums, whether it's drumming or not, you know, like, and I just, my appreciation and my love for it came back all just because of this kid. You know, I've interacted with a couple times since. I mean, she seems absolutely lovely, but it's just funny, you know, like I'm at my worst and I just see this person do it. And then I've just been off it's been a year and a half now.
That was the catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah. And
wow.
I've posted 270 something videos in the last year and a half.
Wow. Nice. That's amazing. I love, what a great story too. Like, and you know, something that Loretta and I talk about quite frequently, like on our channel stuff, is mental health. And we've both been in those places and had that affect our lives. And I just kind of wanted to kind of draw attention to this. Like, obviously Lindsay didn't post that video thinking like, this is going to be a game changer for Myke Lewis in Canada.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, but you never know, like, when just what you're doing, being nice to somebody, like connected with them, and it's gonna make that kind of difference. And as you started playing, did you find that was good therapy for the mental health part of everything? Because it sounds like all of it hit the fan for you.
You know, at the same time, like day one of lockdowns, my wife was like, we're done. And then I was locked in with her for 2.5 years.
Ooh.
Sleeping on the couch in the basement. And it was not a friendly environment.
No.
And I mean, thank God for my daughter. She kept me sane through all of that. But yeah, like it did. Everything just kind of collapsed all at once. And then drumming, I mean, my life's had its ups and downs. I mean, I've had some tremendous successes and I've had tremendous failures. I'd say it's about a 50-50 split of good and bad.
Yeah.
And every time that it's gotten bad, I've landed behind the kit somehow. Just circumstances have aligned in such a way that it's dropped me back behind the drums, and I climb my way out of the hole that way. And this time I decided to really climb out of it. And that was the YouTube thing. Like, I look at my YouTube channel as almost like a resume or a business card.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a drummer of my caliber who, you know, is willing to you know, do his own laundry, I'm your guy. But it's also, there is an element of therapy to it because the exercise, for one thing. I mean, it keeps me like, I will be in the most foul misanthropic moods in the morning. Never speak to me till I've had breakfast. But because I'll get behind like genocide if I don't get my breakfast, and then after breakfast I'm the nicest person in the world, I think. But yeah, once I exercise, same thing. It's like I'll play on the kit for like 90 minutes, and then I'm just like, why did I hate everyone?
Right.
That kind of thing. It's better than drugs. And
Yeah.
and so there's an element of therapy to it. But the big thing for me, really, I would say this is 90% of the reason I started the channel, was just to share music that I really like. Like I used to run radio shows at universities here in Canada. And my favorite thing was just like spinning records people hadn't heard before. Not because I'd be like, look at me, I'm an elitist know-it-all, but more of just like, now you can like it too, you know?
Right.
And that's like, I look at my drum channel as more of a radio show, but in a drumming based format. I guess it's easier to look at me when I'm doing this than when I'm doing what I'm doing now. But pardon me. But yeah, that's the big thing there, was just showing people works of art that I consider uplifting in some way or another. To me, it means that what I'm doing is net positive.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And you look at like what Lindsay's doing, and she had a positive impact on me and probably lots of other people. I don't know. I would hope. And I'm hoping to do the same, where it's like, maybe someone's having an absolute crap time and they happened across this song that I'm playing. And it's not about me drumming. It's not about Myke Lewis at all. It's about, wow, this song is exactly what I needed right now. Because I mean, that happens all the time.
Right.
Like I've got like 1,000 CDs downstairs, and I guarantee you at least half of them have come out like when I needed to hear it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not always like a bad tragic thing. Sometimes you're just like, man, I'm having a great day, and this is exactly the song I wanted to hear today.
Right.
So it's not all it's not all tragedy. And that was the big thing with the channel, was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do something, I got to do something that's positive, because right now the world is, and I'm trying to share music that I think is getting buried. I mean, the way that Canada's working, not to go off on a tangent, but things are not looking up here in the Great White North. And if you do any reading about communism, you know that culture is the first thing to get buried and disappeared forever. And so my thing is, you know, to try to create a kind of almost time capsule in the form of people listening to what I'm doing, so that they will say, hey, I heard this song once by this guy from Canada. And it's not my song. I mean, like today I did Bruce Coburn, right? He's a guy from Canada. Could be anybody from anywhere. But you hear that and it's in there. And then one day you share it with someone. And then even if they do clamp down on things here, it's out there. I snuck it out before the door slammed shut, you know, like Indiana Jones reaching in to grab his hat.
Yeah.
And it's, if nothing comes of it, if I don't get a gig, if no one buys my records, if nothing else comes of it, that people heard songs they liked and then took it and shared it with people they liked, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
I love it. And now you have a very specific format to the way you release content. Like I'm just like, I do a drum cover every Wednesday. That's like my primary content. And it's whatever I want it to be, right? And it's, I mean, and you play music that you like too, like you were saying, but you do something specific on the different days. Tell me about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to get organized because it's one thing to just a bunch of content out there, which I was doing last year. My first 100 covers were just the first, almost all of them were songs where I got the stems from Rock Band or Garage Band. Somebody had hacked the games. And so I just did that. But then Moises became a thing, and I've been using that from my 2023 stuff. And I decided to just just sort of structure it a little better so that people knew what to expect, rather than, I didn't want to give the impression that I was doing hey, look at me, I'm so important that you need to see me 3 times a week, because that's not it at all. I just have a ton of music that I know how to play, and I want to get it out there more than once a week. Once a week was not fast enough. Twice a week was not fast enough. I could probably do 5 days a week, but I feel like that would make people really sick of me. So, because again, like, I get it. I'm not the prettiest girl in the room, and you know, there are better drummers than me. So I don't expect people to watch me because I'm so great. I would just hope that they're like, oh, this guy's consistently putting out cool songs.
Yeah.
Cool. And so I decided to organize it the way that, like, did you ever see the movie UHF?
Oh, yes. We could quote that one back and forth.
This is my mom. My friend George gave it to me.
No, my mom.
Yeah. The mashed potatoes. This is important. This means. Anyways, I saw that movie again. I hadn't watched it in years. I saw it as a kid, and then I found it again and was watching it with my daughter back when I was starting my channel, and I was like, that would be my dream, to have my own TV station, and it would just show the coolest stuff ever. And then I realized, I'm like, well, with YouTube, you kind of have that. And then I'm still thinking old school, like people can watch anytime they want because you can just go hit play whenever. But I miss the days when it was like, okay, it's Thursday, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to sit down and watch The Power or Much Music. And it's going to be an hour of heavy metal. And it's going to be what I'm talking about tomorrow with my friends at school. You know what I mean? Right. I miss that. And I want to kind of slowly bring that back. And the structuring was part of that. So that maybe, you know, I'm doing full album Fridays. Like right now I'm doing Presto by Rush. And maybe Rush isn't your thing because you suffered a head injury or you're a bad person. I don't know. But maybe Rush isn't your thing. And
those are the only two reasons.
Only two reasons. Only two. And in both instances, you're still redeemable. Okay, we're not writing you off. You just haven't heard the right Rush record yet. Anyways, so if you don't like that, then it's like I still got two other options to do. And I didn't want to be like a total heavy metal channel because then you turn away the people who maybe want to hear the other stuff. And I didn't want to pigeonhole so much. So I created these avenues to keep it organized but still open. And plus, like with the Canadian thing, we have a lot of really good bands up here. Like as messed up as the country is now, look, we've churned out some really, really phenomenal musicians. And so I'm more than happy to do that in conjunction with the fact that we do literally have a Canadian content law that says, I think now it's 40%, might be 30%, don't quote me on that, but like 30% of everything has to be Canadian. So what they'll do is they'll do like you have to submit a play log and you run a radio show every time you do a radio show. And we have a group here called the CRTC, who are kind of like the FCC in the United States. And so what they do is they go through and they just make sure that a sufficient amount of Canadian content has been present. And it works in radio and television. And now the internet, which is why like there's a whole other rant about that. But like my channel took a hit because of that. They passed this bill called Bill C-18. And what it meant was that now Google and Facebook, or I guess Meta, as they call it, these companies now are on the hook for the CRTC regulations of 30%. And then if they don't do it, they get fined. So then their response to that was, well, we'll just throttle Canada. And I went from getting 400 views a video to like 30, literally January. Like December, I went and it was nuts. And, but at the same time, like there's the enforcement of it is stupid because we should be able to stand on our own because we make good stuff up here, or at least we used to. And we should be able to stand on our own in a competitive global market, not to get too technical, but that's the way I look at it. Anyways, if you're good, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't need a boost. And I mean, part of that too is because we have 10% of the population you do. So it's just like we do get drowned out because America is like 90% of our culture up here. And I'm not complaining. I think Americans are lovely. It's just that all of your celebrities suck. I've been to the United States like 25 times and I've never met an American I disliked, but all of you on TV suck. Something your politicians and your celebrities are terrible. And then all the rest of you are amazing. And that's the problem, is no one else knows that. Because people over in Saudi Arabia just see the celebrities and the politicians. They think you're all like that. They don't know that you're actually the nicest people on earth. And that's why everyone's tense. But anyways,
that definitely contributes for sure.
Tangent there. But yeah, I think the CRTC thing is kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, I'm doing the mandatory CanCon Mondays as kind of a joke about that, but also out of genuine pride for the work that has come out of this country. And it gives me an excuse to play Rush on a regular basis. And then whatever I want Wednesdays is just that. And again, I didn't want to get locked into a metal channel because I play a lot of metal. I can play a lot of metal. And it would be the easiest thing in the world for me to just bang out metal cover after metal cover, but I don't want to do that because it's not all I like. Right. And then Full Album Fridays was just a way to do like a deep dive into albums that I loved to play along to, or that I just think are great from start to finish. Like there's some albums, you know, like I'd say most of the albums in my collection, there would be, you know, half to 2/3 of it I love, and the other third is like I'll listen to it all in a row, but they're not the songs I go to.
Yeah.
And for Full Album Fridays of the albums when it's like I like every song. And so and it's been a fun way to like, well, I mean, a lot of what I post at the start of my videos is me just being a sarcastic dick, basically. But like everything I write, you need to take with a sarcastic smirk. I was the kid in the back of the class, not really paying attention and just sort of doing this, you know, and just cracking jokes because I thought I was smarter than everyone else. And you just have to read everything I write with that tone and then realize it's mostly harmless. But yeah, that's why I was doing that. And I've got some other things I want to add on to the channel over the coming years. Because pardon me, sorry. Like the first year was just me trying it out. This year has been me structuring it and getting better at the audio and visual, I hope. And then next year, like I'm renovating my basement, so I'm going to be like the look's going to be different, hopefully better. The sound will be better. And then the structure, like I'm still going to have my Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I want to add a live stream once a month where I play a concert in its entirety. Because one of my hobbies is collecting soundboard recordings of whoever, you know, Pink Floyd, Rush, Nine Inch Nails, and I've got hundreds of concerts in my iTunes that are of like, you know, professional quality, you know, not some guy in the audience holding a microphone, right? And so what I thought I would do is, and actually the first person I'm telling this, I just realized this, I kept a lid on it until just now.
Oh, but well, we can cut it out if you want.
Well, now I might as well tell people now. But
you heard it here first.
I didn't want someone to steal the idea because I haven't seen anyone do it yet, which is surprising. Was I was just going to do a live stream of me, like I was going to let people vote on what show to do. Should I do this Rush concert from 1994, this Nine Inch Nails concert from 2000, whatever gets the most votes. I learn it and then I play it from start to finish live on YouTube. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, there's lots of reasons why I want to do that. Again, the sharing is nice. The super chat, give me money thing is obviously a nice thing. I feel like I'll be earning it. I'll be sweating right there in front of you. But I was going to add that in 2024. And then in 2025, I had this show idea that I was going to launch this year, but real life just kind of got in the way. And it is what it is. It's probably better that actually I'm taking my time with it. But it's going to be a half-hour show once a week. This is over about the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So people don't have to watch all of it. They can just like, I only like this guy's Monday series. I'm going to ignore the rest. I'm fine with that. I don't need you to like. This isn't about looking at me. But I had this half-hour show idea that I was going to do, and that's all I'm going to say about it for now. But that's where I'm building towards that. So that's it. That's the channel base. That's the whole thing. That's all of my plans, all of my reasons, everything.
I hope that your show is like, but not necessarily Raoul's Wild Kingdom. And is
that the guy who like does like Planet Earth shows, but with just nonsensical dialogue? My brother just showed me that.
It's Raoul's Wild Kingdom is from UHF, where he's like, today we are teaching poodles how to fly. You know, like he's throwing them out the window.
Do you know that guy died while they were filming that? That's why he's suddenly just not in the movie anymore.
Oh no, I didn't.
He died on his way to work one morning when they're filming it, and they just said that's why he's just in there for a little bit. He was actually a much bigger character in the movie initially.
Oh man, oh that sucks. Gosh, mercy.
Oh, at least they gave the karate guy more airtime. That was wheel.
Yeah, right. So stupid.
So bad. There's nothing in the box.
All right,
I was really into Weird Al as a kid. Oh, I mean, I still think he's hilarious, but I was super into him as a kid. I had this friend of my dad's used to copy albums for me onto blank tapes. My parents were really conservative. I don't mean politically. I just mean like socially. Like I wasn't allowed to listen to heavy metal until the Black Album came out. And then my parents were like, oh, that's Metallica. Sure, you can listen to them. So then me and my brother went and bought Master of Puppets and Injustice for All and just didn't say anything. But yeah, he used to copy albums for me just on the down low, and so that's how I heard a lot of bands that way. And I remember he gave me this Dr. Demento tape. It was just a compilation of a bunch from this guy's show, and it had a bunch of Weird Al stuff in there. And I remember hearing that as a kid. Like I think the first Weird Al song I ever heard was "Spend One More Minute with You." Have you ever heard that one?
I don't think
It's one
I've
of his
heard that
originals.
one. Okay.
It's like the funniest breakup song in the entire world. I love it. But yeah, I got really into him as a kid. I thought he was hilarious.
That's
And then
super fun.
UHF, I mean, UHF was like Office Space in terms of impact on me. Where I'm just like, yeah, this is everything I'm thinking about life.
This, it's and I think it's one of those movies like either you get it and you think it's funny or you hate it.
It's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, it just but I loved it. A friend of mine turned me onto it back in the day, and I'm like, this is the funniest thing ever. Like, this is great. This is great stuff. Well, let's talk about your setup. I think I've seen a couple other people. Okay.
My setup.
Well,
I'm the only one doing it.
Well, Sid, but you were the first person I saw, and then I've seen other people be like, I'm going to try out what Myke Lewis is doing. I think Gaz Graham and Drummer's Key, Chris McDonald, they started experimenting with that kind of hi-hat in the center thing, and kind of tell me what led you to that, because it's not a standard type of setup.
Well, the secret to that is basically that I'm a genius. And I am groundbreaking in all the things that I do.
Yes.
And this is why people copy me. No, I stole the idea from Bill Bruford.
Okay.
I saw a Tama ad for when I think he was playing Star Classics or something. And yeah, he had the setup of the hi-hat, and then his toms were set up like a timpani player. And I remember just seeing that and thinking, like, this might have been like 1998 or something. And I remember seeing that and just thinking, like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then a couple of years later, I was working in a music store, and I think the statute of limitations has passed. So I could say this out loud. I was working in the drum department, and one day I just took home a cable hi-hat pedal and just didn't bring it back. But I was trying it out for the store, and it's the one that's in all of my drum videos today. But this was like 25 years ago when I took it. Anyways, they didn't pay us well. I can't justify it. It was wrong. Anyways.
He's deeply sorry.
I'm not sorry. I'm just it was wrong of me to do it. I don't feel bad about it. I've definitely made good use of it. I got my money's worth. But I took it home to try this idea out initially. And it took a lot of I went on tour with it in 2005. I went out on tour with that setup, and it drove soundmen crazy. Every show, the audio engineer is like, what the heck is this? And I'm like, instead of miking it here, you mic it there. Like there's no different job for him to do, but
right.
People in the music industry don't like change. So basically, yeah, I tried it out, and it's incredibly comfortable for starters. I have ruined both my rotator cuffs. So the ergonomics of a drum kit are really, really a big deal to me, which is why my set keeps changing all the time. I'm trying to get it down to like my goal for 2024 is to not change my kit. That's pretty much it. Because I've changed it like 5 times in the last 6 months. But yeah, basically I'm trying to find a way to sort of age gracefully, shall we say, with the kid, because when you turn 40, you're just in pain all the time.
It's stupid, isn't it?
Nobody told me that. I'm 45 now, and I'm just like, when will this stop burning? Anyways, from here to here, I'm in pain every day, all day.
No.
And it started 6 months ago, and I blame that Dream Theater cover I had to do because that's when it started. But the thing is I'm trying to mitigate the impact of that as I get older. And then the center hi-hat thing, man, it's so comfortable. It allows me to pursue ambidexterity if I want to, without having to have a whole bunch of hi-hats. I'm not knocking people who do that. I think it's super fun to have huge drum sets, but when you're touring and you're carrying it by yourself,
and less is more in those situations.
Yeah. it's really, there's the upsides are, yeah, just the ambidexterity, the comfort. Just you almost feel like you're getting away with something. It's so easy. The challenge then is figuring out the drum fills. So for me, I've got my kit set up so that from my perspective, I got the hi-hat there, and then it's 12, 14, 16 gong, which is a 20-inch. And it, regardless of what configuration, I always have it sort of like, going in right, left, right, left, right, left, larger sizes, so I can descend melodically without having to do this. I can just go instead of.
Yeah, and then you're getting that. Yeah.
And again, too, you start to notice your lower back when you turn 35. For anyone younger than not watching this, and doing this is that's not going to do you any favors. So with a combination of just a ton of practice and really working on rudiments, paradiddles, nibble stroke rolls, especially, you don't have to turn. You can just play drum fills like this. And so that's what I do a lot. Like it does make learning Rush songs like a gigantic challenge, because I learned everything from 2112 to Test for Echo as a teenager on a standard, 3-rack tom setup kit, and trying to pull that off like this with half my floor toms over there. It's just like, what the, and it's like I can't play these songs now. So there's that. There's a lot of mental rewiring that has to be done.
Sure.
But once you get past that, it's super fun. It really is. I keep going back to the standard setup now and again just to check to see if I miss it, and I don't. I think I'm going to stick with the center hi-hat forever. Yeah. It solves too many problems, and there's like the minor inconvenience of the tom thing, but once you get past that, you don't even notice. Like now, even if I want to, I can go like this on the toms, and the hi-hats just aren't in the way because I've trained myself to like go over or under, whatever the case may be. Right. And plus, you got to factor in too, I've been doing this for 3.5 decades. Like I'm looking for a challenge beyond just getting faster.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the thing, is everybody's like, how fast can I play double kick? I mean, it's impressive. I'm not saying don't do it. I love fast double kick. But for me, I'm kind of like, I'm never going to be as fast as George Colias. I just want to be fast enough to play my songs. Yeah. And then beyond that, I'm more interested in how to create interesting drum parts. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I'm not saying being fast I don't get into the whole fast, slow. Does this have 7 strings or 6 strings? Does your kid have too many cymbals or not? I don't get into that. It's whatever works. And, and does it sound cool? And I find that different setups sometimes just inspire different ideas. Yeah. And then, because after a while, it's like you can only go so many times before you're like, right. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I've got my pedals, trigger pedals, but that's just like I've got my standard kick hi-hat, and then I've got my side kick, which is my 18 by 60-inch floor tom converted into a bass drum. Which I can't use right now because I'm back to using old cymbal stands because my rack broke. But the joint, one of the joints that holds the legs, just and the whole kit went over. Oh no! I just sat there looking at it like, I posted a picture of the wreckage actually on YouTube on my whatever the tab is where people can post posts.
Oh, like the community section.
Yeah, that's the word.
I'm pulling it up right now.
So yeah, and now I haven't been able to use my sidekick, but normally I have that there, and then I've got my 2 Roland KT10s for triggering stuff out of the SPDSX. I love those things. I love those pedals. I don't like the SPDSX, but I love the KT10s. The SPDSX is overpriced hype. Although I love the sampler in it. I got to say, I used to own the Octopad, the SPD11.
Okay.
Back in the 90s. And my only complaint about that is if you hit the rim of it, it launched every pad at the same time, which happened to me once at the end of a song. I have this on video somewhere, but actual like VHS video, so I'm not digging it out. But
it's not on YouTube, kids.
It's not on YouTube. But I am reminded of it on a regular basis because one of the local promoters like I don't live in Winnipeg, but I'm in a small town outside of it. And so one of the promoters in Winnipeg that I see on a regular basis, he's always reminded me of this because he was one of the 3 people in the audience and we were playing Refuse Resist by Sepultura, and it ends with this like big percussion thing. He's like and on the fourth one, and I hit the edge of the SPDSX, and it went and all these horns, because I had done 3 gigs that day, and just prior to that, I played a gig where the last song we played was "Army of Me" by Bjork. So I launched every sample from that song at the end of this Sepultura cover.
Oh, no.
And the audience was like, "What? What's that?" And
it's
been bugging me about 25 years later. But other than that, the SPD-11 had a great sound bank. It was very, like, the pads were bigger, the playability was great. You could plug 4 triggers into the back of it, which you still technically can now, but they do the mono stereo crap, which I really hate. Okay. So it was better. If they could put a sampler in that, Roland would be sitting on a gold mine. But I mean, I guess a lot of people like the SPDSX. I just find it's anyway. Get off my lawn. That's all I have to say about that.
Awesome. Well, I like the ergonomic thing, and I totally get. I've been pretty fortunate in terms of physical pain and stuff, but like I'll be playing because I'm 49, and
you're 49.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I thought you were like 28.
Oh man, hey, I'm gonna cut this section out and post it all over. Well, man,
you know what it is? It's because you don't like you act more youthful. The way that you come across is like you don't have a lot of lines on your face. You don't seem as sad as I do, and you just generally seem very like full of energy. And I honestly thought maybe you were like 30 tops.
Oh man, I appreciate that. And definitely.
Well, I'm like, how old is Loretta? I thought she was like 30 as well.
She just turned 47.
Oh, well, there you go. And you guys are hitting it out of the park. Whatever you're eating, keep eating it. The same thing with like Mike Conway. Mike Conway, I think he's in his 50s, and I swear to God, I thought that guy was like 32.
Yeah, he doesn't
he's
look
older
his
than
age
me. Yeah, he's well, and I mean, he's a great drummer too. I really like watching that guy play.
Oh, it's crazy. Did you see his little plug, I guess? Did you see his breakdown for the Hot for Teacher intro?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I downloaded that because I'm learning it for 2024, and I'm using his breakdown to get the intro as close to exact as I can. Because from there I can play the whole song no problem. It's just that intro I want to get right, and he did such a great job on that. Breaking it into 3 parts.
He's good like that. Yeah, he's intense. He's a great drummer, and he's so fun to watch too because he's so happy. You can tell
this is the easiest thing ever. No problem. I'm like, but yeah, and the way that he built that kit, man, that's the coolest thing. His kit looks cool.
It does. You know? It does. He's you and him, and there's a handful of people that I'm kind of like I'll watch your guys' videos, and I'm like, wow. And I don't say that to just throw sunshine and rainbows at you, but truly, like, I'm like, yeah, man, these guys are just like I'm good at what I do. But these guys just have it at a different level, and it's so exciting to watch. And I would never know that you were having any kind of pain to overcome, like in your playing. My left hand will go numb. Like I'll get pins and needles, and I'm like, so like I'll like just one hand like shake out my left hand and until the feeling comes back. And but I guess I mean as we get older, I mean I think there's just going to be obstacles like that to overcome, and there's something else I was gonna say, and then I've kind of my brain started doing 2 different things, so give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it again. It wasn't UHF related. It was we were talking about your setup. Well, anyway, I guess if it pops into my head.
Talking about the setup and aging and ergonomics.
Getting older.
I went on a rant about Roland for a second there. And then,
you know what I did?
We started talking about Mike Conway.
Yep, we did, and we had a little moment where we were talking about how young I look, and it was
how young I look.
It was It was great. And that's just gonna be the whole interview. It's just you being like, what? You no. But it's yeah, man, I don't know like why that is. I just have always, because there's definitely been a truckload of hard stuff to walk through, you know, and sad things in my life. And I guess it's like, you know, with you going to the drums and finding like a way to dig yourself, you know, out of that. Like I've just found little ways to do that too. The drums are part of that. And even sometimes, some days it's just looking around me and start naming things that I'm thankful for in my life. You know, I can sit here and count the things that I wish were different. You know, but it's like, okay, but I've got, you know, this, I've got this, I got this, you know, and not necessarily things, people,
aspects of your life.
Yeah.
I get it totally.
And
I got to start doing more of that myself. I get really worked up about all the things that are going wrong in the world, which, I mean, those complaints are legitimate, but can I do anything about it right now? No. It's easier said than done in terms of like just shutting that aside.
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
There have been times where I've just been like, while I've been drumming, out of nowhere, I'll just remember something stupid that I read that just made me so angry. And then I'm like slamming my kit. I'm like, okay, I got to bring this back. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things in my life that are going right.
Yeah.
But I guess I just wish food wasn't so expensive. Jeez. It's so nuts up here.
Oh man.
Drumsticks are like 25, or what did I pay last time? Yeah, like $25 a pair right now up here.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm going through them.
Yeah.
I'm not one guy for the first time in almost 35 years of drumming now. 3.5 decades, I have never been accused of being quiet or hitting gently until the other day when I did that Cowboys from Hell cover. And the guy's like, "You're not hitting hard enough." I'm like, my neighbors would beg to differ. Anyone I've ever been in a band with would compare to differ. Because I mean, I grew up in the era of you know, you're in the garage where you're competing with amplifiers and everybody's turned up to 10. So if you want to hear yourself, let alone if you want other people to hear it, you have to like slam that snare drum. So I've definitely lightened up over the years, because part of my wear and tear and my pain is self-inflicted for that very reason.
Sure.
Of just hitting too hard. I can't afford to replace cymbals very often, so breaking those suck. And lightening up has allowed a lot more dynamics to come into my playing.
Sure.
But I definitely started out like as a total basher, like just smashing the hell out of everything. And yeah, now I'm still, I mean, I'm 6'3". I'm 190 pounds on a good day. So it's like I'm still gonna hit hard even when I'm not hitting hard, because physics is physics. But yeah, like I'll frequently, like the rims of my snare drum frequently just start coming off because I'm like hitting. It doesn't look like it, but I'm hitting the hell out of that thing. And the jacket hides all of it. That's why. If you didn't have the jacket, I'd be like, you know, doing that. But yeah, I'm like constantly like knocking the lugs out of my drums all the time.
Wow.
On my snare drum. I love that snare drum, but it's kind of it was made by a guy in Winnipeg who just I think that might be the only snare drum he ever made. And I happened to buy it complete fluke. I found it used here on this thing called Kijiji. I don't know if they have that in the States.
Or if we do, I don't know about
it. Yeah, it's a buy and sell.
Okay.
So yeah, I went and bought this used brass snare drum, and then the same day I was going to buy some wood hoops for my 18-inch kick drum conversion. And it just so happened the guy who made the hoops made this snare drum. Like, small world. And so I should write him again, see if he wants to make another one, because it just like I get compliments on it a lot.
Nice.
I like it a lot. I've got 2 other snare drums that I like just as much, but the brass one really just cuts. It's my first metal snare drum. I played wood snares my whole life, not for any specific reason. It just worked out that way. Yeah. And so I don't have a snare collection the way some guys do. Like Michael Jade.
Oh yeah.
Boucher there. Yeah. Man, that guy's drum collection. And he's like, yeah, I think I should buy another kit. I'm like, you could build a house to live in your backyard with what you have right now. I'll go live in there like the crack fox. And it's just, yeah. But I mean, I have three snare drums, and well, one that's in need of service. Because I've got the brass one, the 13x6. I've got the Yamaha Beach Akira Jimbo 13x7. That was my main snare drum for like 20 years.
I love that size. That's a great. That's like a wonderful size. Yeah,
it's like you get the high pitch sort of like snap because of the 13, but you still get a lot of body to it because of the 7. It's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've got a 10x5 that I use sometimes, and then I've got this. My favorite snare until I got the brass one was this pearl maple 13x2.5 snare drum that was just the loudest snare drum I ever owned. Like just like that on it sounds like a gun went off. But what happened was the metal on the strainer, like they broke. It didn't, like a screw didn't come out. The metal actually like tore. Just from wear and tear, I guess. And in between when I bought it and when that happened, because I bought the snare drum in like 1993, they changed the way they put strainers on. So mine has 3 holes, and strainers now by Pearl are 2, the 2 vertical ones. And I'm not confident enough in my woodworking skills to start drilling holes in this shell because there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah.
So I got to find somebody to be brave enough to just go and put a strainer on it.
Because that's, what do you say, 2.5 inches?
Yeah, it's like yeah. And please don't somebody screenshot that and take it out of context. But anyways, this is a kids show.
That's right. We're family friendly. We won't be.
I've done a good job of censoring my swearing here because I'm normally dropping F-bombs every 5 seconds. But I'm trying to clean it up. Be a good example for the children.
Well done.
Or at the very least, Trey Bledsoe.
That's right. Yeah, we want to be a good example for Trey. That is for sure. Let's see. Last question for you. I kind of missed even talking about this earlier, but when you started playing, you mentioned, the Metallica albums, and who were some of your big influences?
Right off the bat, well, there was Terry Williams with Dire Straits. The first 2 drummers I really tried to emulate were Chris Whitten, who played with Paul McCartney from 87 to 90, and he's on Paul McCartney's Tripping the Live Fantastic album. And then he played for Dire Straits from 91 to 93, and he's on their On the Night album. These 2 live albums are what I started playing along to when I started out. And so yeah, there was Chris Whitten. He's the reason I play Zildjian Case this day. He had a Zildjian K heavy ride. It was my favorite sounding cymbal. I got 3 paper roots. I worked for a year, and I bought this thing, and I still have it. It's in a whole bunch of my drum covers to this day. I bought it in literally 1993, so 30 years ago.
Nice, yeah.
And I had more hair then, but basically, yeah, there's him, and then Graham Broad, who played for Roger Waters. Roger Waters did this performance of The Wall in 1990. It was in August 1990. I actually just did a cover from it a couple weeks ago. I did another Brick in the Wall Part 2, and Graham Broad was the drummer on that, and he had the coolest drum set. One of the coolest ones I've still seen to this day, where he had this Tama acoustic kit, right, with the 2 rack toms, 2 floor toms, bunch of cymbals. And then he had this Simmons pad, like what Mike Few has. Like if I got to go to Africa and like beat him up and steal his drum set. But he had this Simmons pad where you would normally put like a 10-inch rack tom. And then to the left of his hi-hat, he had this mix of Simmons and D-drum E-kit. So he had 3 D-drum toms and then 3 Simmons toms over that. And then he had like a regular ride cymbal, hi-hat, and crash. And he would switch between the 2, sometimes mid-song. And I just remember thinking, like, because I used to be fascinated by drum because I liked the way they looked.
Yeah.
I liked big drum sets. I liked how all of them were a little bit different. And so like really interesting looking drum sets really grabbed my attention. And so it was those 2 guys, Chris Whitten and Graham Broad. And then after that, grunge happened. Like I heard those guys in like 1990, and then grunge happened after that. So Dave Cruzen off the first Pearl Jam record, Matt Cameron from Soundgarden were big influences. actually another influence, two influences who weren't acoustic drummers. Sorry, Reese Fulber from Frontline Assembly, who can play the drums, but he's a synth programmer, and he programmed a lot of drum beats that I just found really interesting.
Okay.
And then Chris Vrenna, who used to play for Nine Inch Nails. He's the drummer on the Downward Spiral tour and on the Pretty Hate Machine tour. And if you look up the Woodstock 94 performance of Nine Inch Nails, that's him drumming. Okay. That specific performance blew my mind because the way that he plays the kit is unlike anybody else. Like, there's one song where he's playing normal, like leading with his right hand, right foot in the choruses, and then in the verses, he's switching it and leading with his left foot, like over here, and just the mental gymnastics that this guy does to switch his body around like that. I'm just in awe of it even to this day. Like he's what got me into using all the funky pedals and stuff like that. And then Neil Peart. I was reading Modern Drummer as a teenager, and you kept seeing it every interview. Everyone's talking about Neil Peart this, Neil Peart that. Everybody's talking about Tom Sawyer's the song you got to learn, and the way that now kids are like talking about Meshuggah, right? You got to learn Bleed to be a good drummer. And but back then it was like if you could play Tom Sawyer, you were like godlike on the kit. And so I eventually, do you remember what was it called? I want to say BMG, where you get like 20 albums for a penny. Columbia House. Remember that?
I had all kinds of cassettes.
Yeah, my dad was doing that. And he's like, Mike, do you want any CDs? And I'm like, yeah, I'll try this Rush one and see what happens. And yeah, that changed my life completely. I got their Show of Hands album. So it's their 80s synth era, which a lot of people are like, that's my favorite era. I love it. Awesome. And again, because I love keyboards. But yeah, it was Neil Peart. And then after that, then I started getting into metal. So there was guys like Ray Herrera from Fear Factory or Pete Sandoval with Morbid Angel, Vinnie Paul from Pantera. Lars was an influence early on. Like, he was what sort of, I didn't know double kick existed until Lars Ulrich. I don't think Lars Ulrich is a good drummer, but I do still hold a special place for him in my favorite drummers list because he was an influence.
I see. So he's important to you. Yeah. And you're cutting your music.
But he's watching him now, though. It's like watching your favorite dogs like lie down and die. Like it's just, ugh. But anyways, and then after that, it was just like, now my list of favorite drummers is like this long. But it grew out of Chris Switten, Graham Broad, Matt Cameron, Dave Cruzen, Neil Peart, Chris Vrenna. And now and then since then, guys like Gene Hoglan. Gene Hoglan's amazing. He played for Strapping Young Lad. He's played for Testament, Anthrax, Opeth, Death Clock. And then Thomas Hack from Meshuggah. Who's a super nice guy. I had the good fortune of interviewing him many, many years ago, and I worked as a music journalist. Nicest guy I interviewed. Nice. Danny Carey from Tool, obviously, is a big influence. I think, John Stanier from Helmet was an influence. Nowadays, I would say the guys that are really getting me excited, I've been listening to more and more old jazz. Okay. So guys like Billy Cobham or Peter Erskine or what's that guy's name? Played on Seven Steps to Heaven. Tony Williams. Tony Williams? Am I getting that right? Tony Williams. Jack DeJohnette is really good. Philly Joe Jones. Like again, when I was talking about I didn't want to get pigeonholed as a metal guy. Next year I'll be doing some action. I'm gonna actually be brave enough. A guy named Andrew Nelson, who's from Ireland. Yeah. Inspired. Yeah, drummer. Really nice guy. And he's got me like brave enough to actually like branch out and try a jazz tune. So I'm gonna do for these days. Probably do something off Kind of Blue. I love that record. That's one of my favorite albums. Have you ever heard that by Miles Davis?
I've not heard that album. No. I'll have to check that out.
I was really, really turned off of jazz because when I was in high school, I was in jazz band and the teacher was a bull. Like just totally turned me off. Did you see the movie Whiplash?
Yes. Yeah.
I lived that.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. That movie gave me anxiety. I was so stressed
I refused to go see it. And then actually Michael Bosher sent me a clip of it, the Are You Pushing or Pulling scene.
Yeah.
And I was watching that and man, I got like it hit me here. I was just like because I had a really, really bad I mean, part of it was my own teenage stupidity. I'll own that, but the teacher was not a good teacher, and I avoided jazz for until like my late 20s because of it. And then I heard Kind of Blue, and I was just like, "This is one of my favorite records ever." And so I would recommend anyone try it. It's like jazz for people who don't like jazz. Like if you want to like ease into it, and it's not super noodly and annoying.
Okay.
It's like the kind of record you can put on for a rainy day and just like chill.
Nice. Okay. Great. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here, but and then first of all, I want to thank you for hanging out with me. I want to thank you for just sharing some of your story, the ups and the downs. I think it's important that we talk about those things. You know, if for nothing else, somebody else to go, oh, Eric and Myke have struggled with stuff. That's good to know. I thought I was the only one. So thank you for your transparency on some of that stuff. That really means a lot. And just all the interesting stories and the I think some of the wisdom that you share too is exciting. I think our viewers are going to love it. And I think the two biggest takeaways are that anybody watching this needs to immediately go and watch UHF and Spaceballs before, and then Some Kind of Blue. Go listen to Some Kind of Blue by Miles Davis.
Two totally different moods, by the way. Don't listen to Miles Davis while watching Spaceballs. You'll ruin it.
Yeah, and your head might explode, right? Like, but yeah, man, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with, or?
I've got an album coming out in October.
Oh, sweet.
I have it's a bunch of covers. Well, it's 3 covers. One of them is 12 minutes though, of music from the old Transformers animated movie from 1986.
What?
The soundtrack was no, it's okay. It's one of my favorite movies too.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack has been like one of my favorite albums ever, by Vince DiCola.
Nice.
And like the instrumental music, not the rock stuff. I mean, I like that stuff too, but the instrumental stuff, I've been wanting to cover it since I was about 7 years old, and I finally finishing it. There's got some guys doing guitar solos on it, like as we speak. And then I'm going to mix it in August. I've got the cover art's being worked on right now. And the plan is to release it the first Monday in October. Not the first Monday, sorry, the second Monday in October, which is like Thanksgiving. And then I'll be playing each song as a cover during my mandatory CanCon Mondays over the course of 3 weeks. But that'll be out in October, and it'll be available just on my Bandcamp, or you can get it digitally, or I'll have a CD version of it as well. And cool. So that's coming up soon.
Nice. So you guys keep your eye open for that. Want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with Myke and I. And Myke, again, thank you, my friend. It's been a real delight. I've enjoyed it.
I appreciate you having me out here. It's nice. I like talking to humans.
It's nice, right?
Sometimes.
Well, right. There's exceptions to the rule. I totally understand. All right, guys. We will see you next time.